It was a rainy evening in New York City when I first heard his name. It was through a casual conversation in a small cafe with a journalist friend of mine. She had just returned from a week-long assignment covering a story on unsung heroes in American history. Her eyes glimmered. This is a man you've naturally, my curiosity was piqued. Who was this person? Why was he so significant, yet virtually unknown? What had he done to deserve such reverence? As I sat across from her, sipping my coffee, she began to tell me the story of someone who, at the time, was still largely invisible to the world, but who had left an indelible mark on his name was William, but he went by Bill. He wasn't a politician, a celebrity, or a revolutionary figure in the way history typically records heroes. He wasn't known for battling on a battlefield or leading massive social movements. Bill was an ordinary man. An unassuming man in his mid-40s, from a small town in Pennsylvania. But his actions in the early 2000s would ripple through history. Bill's story begins with a family. He wasn't from a rich background, and his early years were filled with hardship. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, Bill had to learn the value of hard work and resilience early on. He was the kind of person who would go the extra mile, not for recognition or reward, but because he believed it was simply the right thing to do. This mindset became in the early 2000s. Bill found himself working for a technology company in Silicon Valley. He wasn't the CEO or a top executive. He was just another software engineer, working long hours, but always thinking about ways he could contribute to the larger picture. One evening, as he sat at his desk, something caught his eye. A small glitch in the system. It was so minor that no one else would have noticed it, but Bill did. He couldn't let it go. What Bill didn't know at the time was that this small glitch was actually the first step in uncovering a massive issue that would affect millions of people. It was a security flaw, a vulnerability in a system that, if left unchecked, could have been exploited by cyber criminals. Bill was the first to see it, but he wasn't the only one who noticed the potential consequences. Over the next few weeks, Bill dug deeper. He researched, tested, and analyzed the flaw. As he did, he uncovered something terrifying. The vulnerability wasn't just isolated. It was a part of a much larger issue that could potentially bring down entire networks, threatening national security. The information he discovered could have been exploited in devastating ways by hackers with malicious intent. But here's where Bill's story takes a turn. Unlike many people who would have reported this discovery to their superiors and washed their hands of the problem, Bill didn't stop there. He knew he had to do more. He couldn't just rely on the corporate world to fix it. This was something far bigger than a company's bottom line. It was a matter of safety and security for millions of people. For days, Bill struggled with how to approach the situation. He knew that reporting it to the wrong people could lead to it being swept under the rug. He feared that it would never see the light of day. He weighed his options carefully, wondering if he should take the information to the authorities. But would anyone listen to him? Would they even believe him? Bill's breakthrough came when he made the decision to reach out to a group of cybersecurity experts, independent professionals who worked outside of the corporate world and had no stake in protecting the company's reputation. He knew they would be able to look at the problem with fresh eyes and, most importantly, with the urgency it required. When he shared his findings with them, they were stunned. The flaw Bill had discovered was far more dangerous than anyone had initially realized. The team of experts quickly got to work, analyzing the scope of the vulnerability and developing a plan to fix it. Bill's discovery ultimately led to a massive overhaul in the way cybersecurity protocols were handled within the company, and it forced changes across the industry. But that's not where Bill's story ends. The story of what happened next is where the true heroism comes in. Despite his crucial role in preventing a national security disaster, Bill's company didn't recognize his work. In fact, they barely acknowledged his contribution. The people he worked with, his colleagues and superiors, didn't fully comprehend the magnitude of what he had uncovered. Bill's decision to work with independent experts had, in their eyes, bypassed the proper channels. He was reprimanded for his actions. The very company he had worked for, one that he had been loyal to, questioned his motivations. Some even accused him of being too dramatic, exaggerating the severity of the situation. It became clear that corporate interests took priority over the safety of the people. It wasn't until Bill's story was picked up by independent journalists and cybersecurity publications that the full scale of his actions became public knowledge. As the story spread, it garnered attention from the public, as well as from governmental agencies. People were shocked to learn how close they had come to a disaster, one that could have affected millions of individuals, businesses, and even critical infrastructure. Bill's name soon became synonymous with one of the biggest cybersecurity breakthroughs of the decade, but it was never about the recognition for him. For Bill, it was about doing the right thing even when no one was looking. Even when the company he worked for didn't acknowledge the importance of his discovery, he didn't back down. His goal wasn't fame or fortune, it was to prevent harm and protect the people who would never know just how close they had come to disaster. It was only after the fact that Bill was invited to speak at conferences and awarded honorary recognitions in cybersecurity circles. But he remained humble, always downplaying the heroism of his actions. He simply said, "I was doing my job. Someone had to take action, and I knew it had to be me." His quiet humility and unwavering commitment to doing what was right in the face of adversity is what truly makes Bill a hero. He didn't wear a cape, and he didn't have a publicist. He was a regular person who saw a problem, understood its gravity, and did what he could to make a difference. In a world where many are quick to look the other way, Bill showed what it meant to take responsibility for something larger than yourself. The story of Bill serves as a reminder that true heroism doesn't always look the way we expect. It isn't about grand gestures or dramatic speeches. It's about quietly making the right choices, even when those choices might not make you popular or bring you fame. Sometimes, heroes are just people who are willing to stand up and do what needs to be done, even when the world doesn't recognize their efforts right away. Bill's story is one that is often overlooked, but it's a story that deserves to be told. It's the untold story of a man who changed everything. Not with a grand plan or a public display, but with quiet determination, integrity, and the courage to do what was right.